On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, a third of the league has trash coaching. Stay tuned. Episode 159 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you?
I am swell. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I am actually curious, Chase, how do you feel being asked how you are 3 times today?
It's great because, I was already asked before those 3 times, probably, 4 or 5 different times as well, earlier too, at least. So, it's just great.
Do another podcast, eh? Cheating on me?
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on.
Wow, pretty rude. Anyways, on today's episode of the We're Not Professionals podcast, we are covering the NFL. If you haven't seen, we did release a college football episode before this one, so make sure to check that out because there is a massive college football playoff implication match this weekend. It is Georgia versus Tennessee. Whichever team wins that likely goes to the SEC championship to face Bama. So make sure to go check out that episode. It was huge. It was a lot of fun as well. But today, talking about the NFL, going to be going over Dan Snyder. He's in talks to sell the Washington Commanders. Talk about the NFL trade deadline because it was one of the most active trade deadlines we've seen in quite a while. And then we'll talk about coaching. We've talked about coaching before. We haven't done an episode in maybe a month and a half? But
yeah, about that.
And we've already talked about how bad the coaching is. But somehow it's gotten worse. I don't know how.
It's fair.
So we'll be talking about that. But let's first talk about Dan Snyder and talks to sell the team. Now, we don't know if this is just a minority part of the team so that he can get a little cash to build a new facilities. We don't know exactly what it's going to be if he's trying to sell the whole team, but regardless, he wasn't interested in selling any part of the team just a month back. This is big news. The Commanders were evaluated by Forbes at $5.6 billion just back in August. The biggest sale to this point we've seen, the Denver Broncos going for $4.65 just recently.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. That's so much money. Like, who just has that money? It's unreal. But and I know the NFL's king. It's talked about all the time. You compare other live events or other just TV shows viewership compared to the NFL, and the NFL just blows everything out of the water. So it makes sense. These stadiums, no matter how good or bad your team is, they're always packed. Teams are always selling tickets, and it's no different here. So they can probably get that dollar amount. Hell, they might be able to get more. I don't say it's that impossible, but I'm just happy that Dan Snyder is potentially on his way out. He was almost forced to sell the team. Months ago, it was brought up that there could have been a possibility. He's been involved in some shady stuff, and just not a big fan of the guy and the way he's let things kind of been run there based on things that we've heard from former employees, leaks we've seen, and all that kind of stuff. So Dan Snyder, we'll see you later. Whoever comes in and buys the team, hopefully they can do a good job running it.
And stuff we've seen on TV. We saw Jalen Hurts get toppled on by fans because of how terrible the facilities there have been left in place. So I'm really hoping the same. I'm hoping Dan Snyder's out of there. $5.6 billion. If you get that, Dan Snyder, how do you not take it? You're already under insane amount of scrutiny. Just take the money and run. And Chase, by the way, you talked about the Powerball, how you were getting yourself a ticket. You would only need 5 Powerball wins to have enough money for the Washington Commanders.
Well, looks like I'm not buying them anytime soon.
Right. All right, let's talk about the NFL trade deadline. This one was super active, and it started a couple of days before the actual deadline, but we saw a lot of moves, some really big ones, including Christian McCaffrey. I think really that's the one that started all the craziness because we saw the Robbie Anderson trade, but that really wasn't much. Christian McCaffrey, he goes for a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. He heads over to San Francisco.
Yeah, one of the bigger trade packages that you'll see for a player, especially in season, players don't often get moved in season, and if they do, it's usually for swap of late round picks or whatever. It's guys that can come and replace an injured player. Well, CMC's an arguable, maybe even definitive top 10 talent in the league, so he commands quite the haul. I know running backs look at it as a kind of revolving door position where you can just bring in one guy, and once he gets hurt, you bring in another. But CMC, when healthy, he really is just a game changer. He's someone that can do so much for this offense. As we saw this week, he had a receiving touchdown, he had a rushing touchdown, then he had a passing touchdown too, just for the hell of it. Like he does just special things because he's just an incredible football player. So seeing that package, the Panthers said it equaled out to what was a first round pick in their value chart, which is probably about fair. I'd say it's maybe even slightly more than a first round pick. I know how much first round picks help with the fifth year option and all that stuff, but to get four draft picks in for one player when you're going through a total rebuild, I mean, it really is a trade that works out for both teams.
Absolutely. And Christian McCaffrey putting up the old hat trick, that was something I love to see. The only thing is I was terrified when I saw this trade go through. Christian McCaffrey, if anyone plays fantasy, this guy has some injury issues. He's been injured a lot in the recent years. If you're a fantasy guy, you also know that San Francisco 49ers running backs don't have a great track record. So when I saw this go through, heart just dropped. Luckily, I didn't have Christian McCaffrey anywhere, and I wasn't as worried as I could be. But as of right now, things are going well. He's stayed healthy. Knock on wood that he stays healthy and continues to play great like he has so far.
I got this for you, Mike. In math, what happens
double
when you
negative?
multiply? Yeah, here we go. You multiply two negatives. Double negative becomes positive.
Maybe.
Bam.
That'd be cool to see.
He's never going to get hurt ever again. He's going to play till he's 60.
Oh, wow. That would be something.
Yes, it would be great.
We see Tommy at 45, and he looks terrible. To see a running back at 60, that would be something.
Hey, Jerry Rice looked like a legend until the day he retired.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, speaking of running back injury, Breece Hall, so sad he went down. I even sent him a old tweet saying, hey, man, I hope for the best on your recovery. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I'm so happy that I took you in fantasy. I'm not even mad that you're injured. I'm just happy that I was able to witness your greatness up to this point.
Mike?
Yes.
That tweet is what made him get the courage to start his surgery, or his rehab surgery. Whatever the hell I don't word it.
I appreciate that, Breece. I really do.
Yeah, like you are just the motivational force in Breece Hall's life.
Imagine? That'd be sick. But Breece Hall, he goes down. That sucked for me. I have him in 4 of 5 leagues. But the Jets, they go out, reinforce that backfield by trading for James Robinson from the Jags. He is Chase's love child, and it was a 6th-round pick, conditional, going back to the Jags.
Again, it kind of works out for both teams. Writing's on the wall, Travis Etienne. Even if this regime didn't draft him, he was still a first-round pick. You're going to do what you can to get out of your first-round pick, and he's looking pretty good so far. So what are you going to do? You try to use the guy as much as you can. Might as well get James Robinson out of the way, and his snaps were kind of decreasing there in the last couple of weeks. So good for Etienne. He can kind of be on his own. Now James Robinson going into, I believe, the final year of his deal since he was a UDFA, 3-year contract. He gets to finish out this year with the Jets, and as long as he stays healthy, he's going to have a lot of options to choose from next year in free agency. I think he's going to not necessarily get a payday, but he'll definitely get a lot more money than he made on this contract. I could see teams maybe wanting to bring him in as a possible RB1 for them. I could also see teams wanting to bring him in like the Jamal Williams role, where it's more of like a 1B, kind of a 1-2 combo. And honestly, Jamal Williams moves on. I've got no problem with the Lions bringing James Robinson. I think that'd be awesome. So good for J-Rob. I think he's going to have some success with the Jets, hopefully help him push for a playoff spot, and then he should be able to walk in free agency as long as they don't, make him a restricted free agent, which is possible, but I hope they don't because they have Breece. What's the point of doing that?
Right, and I was going to ask you if you were worried at all, because we know, as people that follow the draft, follow dynasty football leagues, this running back class is super talented coming up. Were you worried at all? Are you worried at all that maybe J-Rob doesn't get the opportunity that you're hoping for because of how talented this draft class is?
I still think he's going to get it because I think he's going to go to if team, if Detroit's committed to DeAndre Swift, I don't think they're spending much draft capital on a running back, but they need someone who has some juice to be the number 2. And I think that that's a perfect fit. Is he going to go somewhere and be a number 1? Probably not. I don't want to rule it out because I don't think it's impossible, but he's probably not. He's probably going to be more of that supplemental role or complementary role, however you want to word it. But I'm not too worried about it because I think he's only going to get offers like that. I don't really think he's going to get many just your straight up backup running back offers. So I still have optimism for him.
Let's now move to the next big trade that happened. This between the Eagles and the Bears, as the Bears shipped off Robert Quinn and got back a 2023 4th-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, great addition for the Eagles. Robert Quinn, hell of a pass rusher, great defensive player. I think that it makes sense. The Bears obviously are kind of struggling. They're not a very good roster, as we kind of predicted coming into the year. So you move on from a veteran guy who probably doesn't want to stick around very much, and now he gets to go to a team who is right now on based on record the best team in the NFL and is playing really well. So I think he's going to help that team out quite a bit.
And I get why the Bears moved off of Robert Quinn, but at the same time, they're in a division that's not great at the moment. The Vikings on top, sitting nicely, but they're currently sitting at 3-5, and Justin Fields has really been looking much better over these past 2-3 weeks. So I don't know. Maybe it was a little early. Maybe it's the Bears' time to shine.
No. Sorry, Mike.
Next up, we got the Chiefs and the Giants as the Chiefs trade for Kadarius Toney, sending the Giants back a 3rd-round pick, a compensatory pick that being, and a 6th-round pick, both coming in 2023.
It's absolutely hilarious that I see Kadarius Toney is deemed fully healthy, and then once he gets to the Chiefs, he's probably like, yeah, I'm just faking injuries to get out of this place. They're treating me like such garbage. I got my back tattooed in honor of this place. I was hoping to do great things for them, and they never used me how they said they were going to. So now I'm going to go to the Chiefs and I'm going to go dominate. And I think that he's in a hell of a spot to do it. I don't think he's walking into the wide receiver 1 role. I don't think that role really exists in Kansas City. Tyreek had it, but now he's gone. It's Travis Kelce's show, and the receivers are just kind of here to kind of offer him support. So I think he's going to be a great support piece. You're going to see him get carries out of the backfield. You're going to see him get design touches, but he's going to be a used player, and I think it's going to be super exciting, not just for fantasy football, but for actual NFL football as well.
Kadarius Toney, wide receiver 1 in fantasy next year. Book it.
Yeah, okay. Put that in the takes tracker, Graham.
I love Kadarius Toney. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's the best wide receiver that was on the Giants at the time. The Giants didn't want to utilize him. I don't even think he was faking an injury. I think he was just being put on, not giving him the time. And he's like, all right, well, whatever. It is what it is. I mean, he tweeted, I'm not even injured or something like that. So
that's great.
This is a guy who is going to come over to the Chiefs, and I think he is a player that Patrick Mahomes likes. I mean, we know Patrick Mahomes liked Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying Kadarius Toney is Tyreek Hill, but this is a guy who is deadly after the catch. I mentioned that multiple times when we were doing our draft rankings back 2 years ago when he was coming out. This is a player that I am so excited to see get thrown the ball from Patrick Mahomes.
And before we move on to the next trade, a really good, kind of measuring stone for this and how much he's going to help is look at the couple games Mecole Hardman's had this year, where he's gotten the design touches. He had that 3 or 4 touchdown game with like 2 or 3 of the mean rush touchdowns, whatever it ended up being, but played great. And he's not he's very fast, but he's not some athletic freak. He's not some, rack monster. He's not some just dominant force in the field like Kadarius Toney is. So imagine giving Kadarius Toney those opportunities. I think he's got a lot of chances to succeed, but I'm not ready to say wide receiver 1.
I can't wait. Hey, I'm still giving him this year,
I know. I'm still not ready for that, though. I hope it'd be cool if he can prove me wrong and just come in this year and start dominating and then be like, all right, I'm with you, Mike, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, if he ends this season on an Amon-Ra St. Brown-like start that he had to this season, what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, then, of course. I got to say that at that point.
Right. All right, Baltimore and Chicago, another trade being done here as Chicago just not interested in keeping any of their defensive players. They send out star linebacker Roquan Smith. In return, A.J. Klein, a 2023 second-round pick, and a 2023 fifth-round pick.
This one's a bit more of a favor to the player. He requested a trade earlier in the year, and they kind of said it wasn't going to happen. things haven't gone super well. Team's not super talented, and they decided to give him that request or grant him that request. AJ Klein's gonna be fine for what they're doing this year, fill in that role the best he can. Obviously, no Roquan Smith, one of the better linebackers in the league. I think it's probably solid compensation for a guy that was known wanted to be out. I know you're not a big fan of this trade because he does go to your division rival, the Baltimore Ravens, but it's a great trade for the Ravens. It's very much worth it. Someone that you can hopefully lock up long term, and he can have some real strong success there with the Ravens.
Yeah, it is a great trade for the Ravens, and even though I hate seeing him go in division, I mean, it just makes too much sense. They brought in Patrick Queen 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago now, but he looked like a fantastic player in his rookie season. He hasn't really been able to grow into that true number one linebacker that they've been hoping for. They now bring over one that can help him grow into his role in Roquan Smith. So I'm excited to see how Roquan's career develops. If it goes down the shitter, then that'll be heartbreaking, except for when they face the Bengals.
That's so sweet of you.
All right, well, TJ Hawkinson, Chase. This one's I did not expect it, I'll tell you that. The Lions sent TJ Hawkinson a 4th-round pick in 2023 and a conditional 4th-round pick in 2024 to the Vikings for a 2nd-round pick in 23 and a 3rd-round pick in 24.
So I thought that a trade was going to happen. I thought Hawk was pretty much guaranteed out. It seemed very clear that he wasn't really a focal point of the offense. He wasn't their guy. He was going to have to get paid bigger money coming up. So might as well move on. I saw a trade going to happen. Just I did not expect it to be the Minnesota Vikings. I guess Brad Holmes and I can't remember their GM's name up there in Minnesota, but I guess they're best friends because it's 2 interdivision trades in the last however many months it's been, freaking 6 months. That's crazy. You don't ever see that. But Hawk going to Minnesota, I think it's a nice fit for them. Irv Smith's had a lot of trouble staying healthy, so their tight end position's been pretty weak. I think he's going to fill that role really well. And Detroit probably gets back really the best return they could expect in this kind of situation. I would assume teams kind of knew that it wasn't going to be a long-term signing here, and they were like, okay, we're not going to just give up these assets because we can get them in free agency maybe, so we're willing to give up this for now, and that's kind of what we see with this compensation. When you look at these draft picks, the 2nd and the 3rd for the 4th and a conditional 4th, it ends up being like a kind of 1.5 round move up, all said and done. It's solid. I can't complain about it. It's going to let the Lions have, I believe it's 5 top 64 picks this year because of the Dolphins pick being forfeited. It's technically 64 and not 65, the way things currently stand. And that'd be great. They really need that in a year where there's a ton of defensive talent, and if they pick 1st overall, they can grab a quarterback. This could end up being a cornerstone draft for them. So I'm not super against this trade going down the way that it did, but it just does suck seeing him go to a division opponent.
And I think Brad Holmes just hates the Lions and loves the division because did he not make trades with Green Bay as well during the draft?
Honestly, I can't remember.
I don't remember if it was Green Bay or Chicago, but I'm pretty sure it was Green Bay. They traded with them for like 2nd-round picks or something. I think it was when Green Bay moved up to grab Christian Watson, maybe. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, possibly. That I don't know for sure. Like, don't quote me on it, but I really can't remember that specifically.
I don't love it seeing him do these in-division trades, but it is what it is. I don't know if you saw the tweet, Chase, but it was, wow, look at this look at TJ Hawkinson evolving into a Viking. Did you see that?
Can't say I did.
So it showed his rookie picture, short hair. Then it showed the next year, longer hair with a beard. This year, obviously, we know what he looks like. And then it just showed a full-on Viking. So,
oh my gosh.
The guy does fit the Minnesota Vikings look, but
for sure.
Definitely an interesting trade to see a former top 10 pick go in division. All right. Chase Claypool, he is on the way to Chicago. The Pittsburgh Steelers are receiving a 2023 2nd-round pick from the Bears, and it is not the Ravens' 2nd-round pick, but rather the Bears' 2nd-round pick. I mean, come on.
If the season were to end right now, this would be a higher draft selection than what Chase Claypool was drafted with. I don't know how you could say that he's earned that trade value. Yeah, he's got some nice athletics. He's got some nice traits. That's great. I still never thought he was a great receiver coming out of college. I think he was overdrafted. And I still don't think he's a great receiver in the NFL. He's had some good moments, sure, but I don't have much faith in him. I guess if you're going anywhere, go to Chicago where there's just no competition right now. Darnell Mooney is your biggest comp, and let's face it, he's not built to be a wide receiver one. So at least you're gonna have an opportunity to maybe show some success. But like I can't believe they got that much for him.
I'm not a big Chase Claypool fan in general. I know in fantasy football and dynasty, I've been telling people that I wouldn't give up a third for him. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I'd give up a third for him. A third is kind of nothing.
However, I was actually happy when I first saw this because I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I'm like, oh, yes, finally. Chicago investing in their young quarterback. I mean, how long did it take them? Way too long. And then I saw it was for a second-round pick, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, are you kidding me? And then I saw it was Chicago's, not Baltimore's.
Yeah, just rough.
Like, it's so bad. Kadarius Toney went for a third and a fifth. I would rather do that 100 times out of 100 times than do a second for Claypool, an early second for Claypool.
I agree.
And George Pickens already took Claypool's job. Love to see it.
George Pickens is elite, dude.
All right, now we have Pittsburgh. They traded for William Jackson III. They get a conditional 7th-round pick. The Commanders get a conditional 6th-round pick, these both being in 2025. Have fun, Pittsburgh. William Jackson was a Bengal. He went over to the Commanders, and this guy is terrible. The Commanders were going to cut him. And then Pittsburgh was like, you know what? We'll trade for him.
It really... Like, a trade like this is nothing. Like, honestly, you're swapping conditional picks just to get a player, just to make sure you get him instead of him signing elsewhere. So it's really not like a big, franchise-altering deal. So if you really want to take a chance on a guy, then it's fine. But, again, I don't think this does anything to either team, really.
Yeah, but he also sucks.
Well, that's fine, Danny. But, again, I really don't think it changes anything for either team.
All right, Dolphins, Broncos. The Dolphins trade Chase Edmonds, their 2023 first-round pick, the 2024 fourth-round draft pick for Bradley Chubb, and a 2025 fifth-round pick. Bradley Chubb going to be joining Jalen Phillips on the defensive line. Miami, already a super competitive team. Adding a solid edge like Bradley Chubb definitely going to help them.
Oh, for sure. That's a great addition. Bradley Chubb is an awesome NFL player. He's a bit underwhelmed compared to expectations, but you can see the talent is clearly there. And when you see the return, it shows that they believe in that talent. I mean, the Dolphins, they did a great job with those draft picks that they got for the Trey Lance trade. They really have. You gotta tip your hat to them. They've done some pretty good work. So it's good to see. I think it's a nice fit. Chase Edmonds is going to go play a nice supplemental role in Denver for, I don't know if he's just got a 1-year contract or if it's 2 years, but I'm assuming it's just a 1 year. So he'll help out this year. Maybe they can right the ship and play a little better and he can play a decent role. If not, and then he's got the opportunity to go somewhere else in free agency. But it really is a nice trade. And to get that first round pick as well, no matter where Miami finishes this year, that's something Denver really needed.
Yeah, they totally did. And I mean, Russell Wilson, we know he's not been looking like the guy, but Miami to turn the, what was it, 5th overall pick or 4th overall or 3rd overall pick?
3rd overall pick.
3rd overall pick into Bradley Chubb, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. Absolutely insane. Great job by the Dolphins there.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Jacksonville, they go out and trade for Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley not playing this year because he bet that the Falcons would actually beat the Jaguars last year. That happened to happen. And now Calvin Ridley suspended, but he is a Jaguar.
Yeah, and talent-wise, I mean, he's worth this trade. But obviously, last year he had some issues where he needed to be away from football, and in that time, he ended up making a bet and got suspended for it, which I still think is kind of dumb, but that's beside the point right now. He's serving that suspension. He'll be good to go next year. I think he's a fantastic number 1 target for Trevor Lawrence. I think this is someone that could really help him out. It really sucks that it can't be this year because I think right now Trevor Lawrence needs that confidence boost. And yeah, Chris Kirk, he's playing well this year, but just no one on the team has as a receiving threat has the talent that Calvin Ridley does. So once he can step into that role next year, I think he's got a chance to just really dominate.
Right, and I do have a little worry because I think Calvin Ridley by the start of next season will be around 29 years old. This was a guy who came into the league later than normal, and he's been out for a whole season. So I am a little bit worried about that, but at the same time, the last time we've seen him, he's most definitely worth the conditional 2nd and the 5th round pick that he was traded for.
He turns 28 December 20th, so he'll be
Okay.
28 pretty much all next season.
Okay. Sounds good.
So not much difference, but
some more trades that don't mean too much. I'll hit on one more. Was there one that you're super interested in?
Jeff Wilson to Miami. This could be awesome for the couple fantasy teams I have Jeff Wilson on, because right now all you gotta do is beat out Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, but he wasn't able to do that the last couple of seasons in San Francisco.
Hey, shut up.
I was watching Raheem Mostert this weekend, and dude looks fast. We know he's fast, but
he's the fastest running back in the league, and that's not really a debate.
He looks good.
Yeah, I've always loved Raheem Mostert. I wish he could just stay healthy.
Right. The only other trade I wanted to hit on was the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts. The Bills get Nyheim Hines. The Colts get Zach Moss and a conditional 5th-round pick. I mean, it doesn't really mean much. We knew Zach Moss wasn't the guy in Buffalo. The thing I wanted to look at was bringing in Nyheim Hines, who I think is a very similar player to the likes of James Cook, their rookie in the backfield. That worries me a little bit.
It kind of tells you all you need to know about their thoughts on what he's done so far. They tried to sign J.D. McKissick. They ended up drafting James Cook, and now they go trade for Nyheim Hines because they have not trusted James Cook enough. And this is what I kind of worried about when I thought overdrafted him. I thought he was better off as maybe a late day 2, early day 3 type guy, just because I just didn't see him having enough of a role in an offense, and that's kind of what happened. I think this could be a good opportunity where, I mean, really they gave up nothing. Like, Zach Moss is terrible. He's no help to that team. So to give up a 5th-round pick, you can clear up a roster spot to get Nyheim Hines. I think this could be a good opportunity where maybe James Cook can kind of learn a little bit from him, see how he's used as this, this kick punt returner, a kind of slot wide receiver, running back, this hybrid player that he is. If James Cook can learn and kind of adapt what Nyheim Hines does, then he can have some success. So James Cook shouldn't be too upset about this. I think if he takes it as a learning experience, this can end up working out well for him, for Nyheim Hines, and the Bills.
And Chase, you remember what Nyheim Hines did for John Dowell's team when we were playing franchise mode back in Madden 18, don't you?
Yes.
We don't expect the same, do we?
I do not expect 3,000 rushing yards in a single season from Nyheim Hines. I'm not going to lie.
I hope not. I'll tell you that.
That would be incredible.
I hope not. All right, well, let's move on from the trade deadline. Let's talk about the worst coaching season we've ever seen. It's been bad. Matt Rule already gone. We knew that he not performing well with Carolina. It wouldn't last too long, and he has seen the door. But we've got 10 other coaches currently listed as, either terrible coaches or they're in the debate for, man, this guy's really struggled this year and compared to prior seasons. So, and 10, that's, half or a quarter, or my gosh, I can't get math right. A third of the league. So let's talk about them. Zach Taylor, Arthur Smith, Dan Campbell, Josh McDaniels, Nathaniel Hackett, Frank Reich, Cliff Kingsbury, Todd Bowles, Lovie Smith, and Brandon Staley. All of these names, guys that are underperforming or are just terrible. Let's start with the 2 worst. Start with Nathaniel Hackett, Josh McDaniels. If you are ownership, would you be willing to fire them today?
Yes. I hate not giving coaches an opportunity to kind of do their thing, adapt their offenses, and see what you got. But the regression that both these teams had for guys that are supposed to be these offensive minds is horrendous. The Broncos look like the worst product I've ever seen on the field offensively. The Raiders are damn near close. It really is disappointing, especially when you look at the talent on both sides, or on both of those teams, I should say. So, starting with the Broncos, sucks Javonte got hurt, but Melvin Gordon's still very capable of running back. They have Russell Wilson, who's had a lot of success in the past. They have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Now they have Greg Dulcich back, Albert O. That's enough weapons on that offensive side of the ball where there's no reason they should be, averaging under 20 points a game like they have been. There's no reason that defense should be playing as well as they are for the offense to just come out and leave them hanging. It's really disappointing. And the same thing can be said about the Raiders. Derek Carr, him and his offense got shut out last week. Tough look. I don't think he was given much chance to succeed. I don't think Josh McDaniels is a very good coach. I was never a big fan of him. Never thought he would have did very well in this role, and we're kind of seeing it here. I don't know. I know Waller's been hurt this year and hasn't played a lot, but still, when you have Devontae Adams, when you've got Hunter Renfrow, when you have Foster Moreau, who is a very capable backup tight end, and you have Josh Jacobs, who's just lighting the world on fire. How have things gone so poorly? I don't understand. It's really disappointing, and I wouldn't be that against looking at my other options. I wouldn't fire these guys just to fire them. I would have to say that you'd have to kind of know about the right candidate. But if the right one's out there, like, you gotta do what you gotta do.
And these were two quarterbacks that we had in our top 12 quarterbacks last year. And I was arguing, I'm not sure if you were, but I was arguing both top 10 because I liked Derek Carr that much. I thought he was such an underrated quarterback. Neither look like a top 20 quarterback right now. They both look terrible. And the fact that the Broncos offense is worse than they were with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock when they have Russell Wilson is absolutely asinine. And the fact that Derek Carr and that offense has been performing worse, even though they just added the wide receiver one in Devontae Adams, like, it is terrible. And, you know, the Broncos, they have a very talented defense, so they've been saved by that, but the Raiders' defense has even regressed too. So just everything about these two coaches has been horrible. Clock management, play calling, team building, like, whatever it was, it's been horrible. I would not be shocked if we hear some things from players after they're gone about how terrible they were in the locker room as well. None of the players look like they want to play for these two coaches.
Yeah, not at all. They look very disengaged, you know, from what this coaching staff's preaching. They just don't. They all look incompetent. I don't know how else to say it. It really is just. It's disappointing. It's saddening. It's frustrating. I really want to root for these quarterbacks. Russell Wilson a little less. He's kind of starting to drive me freaking nuts. But I really want to root for these quarterbacks. I really want to root for these teams, root for a lot of these players. But these coaches just make it hard, man.
Yeah, you're not lying there. I mean, Russell Wilson, an absolute meme to start the season. It was so funny to, dialed in, let's ride. I mean, we were laughing about this. I think our fantasy team names have something to do with it. But at this point, dude, you are losing games and saying, let's ride. You are coming into press conferences talking about how you guys just got absolutely clobbered and your offense only managed to put up 6 points, yet you're saying, let's ride. Like, stop.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing.
There's a time and a place for that, and it's not when you are the second worst team in your division, and that's only because the Raiders have been worse, and that's a shocker.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right, Chase, you're the owner of the football team. Any other coaches we have on this list you're willing to fire today, or at least have plans to fire by the end of the season?
I look at this list and, like, a lot of them. I mean, Arthur Smith had some really low lows this season, but then there's some moments where it's like, okay, maybe like a couple flashes where, like, maybe he's worth holding on to. So I wouldn't can him during the year. There's no point. Their team's not going to change, so why even bother? Dan Campbell, we might as well talk about him now. Yeah, it's very frustrating that the Lions are 1-6, but at the same time, like, we've got no other choice but to be patient. It's been very frustrating trying to be patient, being a lifelong Lions fan. But we all should have known when this regime was given 6-year contracts that it was going to be a slow process. They were going to get their guys in. They were going to do what they're going to do. They're loading up for a draft this upcoming year that should put them in a position to have some success. If it doesn't work after this year, then you start evaluating those options again. But right now, you can't necessarily cut them short. But outside of those guys, Frank Reich, has what he's done been bad enough to fire him? I don't know. Like, it's not been good, but at the same time, like, there's worse options out there. Like, maybe Cliff deserves it more. Maybe Brandon Staley deserves it more because you've got so much talent and it's underperforming, dude. Like, there's just so many questions. It's all just so disappointing. I guess if I had to choose one out of all these guys that I would give the X right now, it's probably Brandon Staley.
Ooh, I like that pick. Frank Reich feels like who's the guy over in Jacksonville right now?
Doug Peterson.
He feels like a Doug Peterson to me, a guy who is going to lose his job, but is going to be an NFL coach again and hopefully have success again because, Doug Peterson, he hasn't really found that with the Jags yet, but I mean, Doug Peterson was a good coach. I think he still is. I'm not ready to put him on this list yet, but Frank Reich, I believe in him. It's not going right for him right now. That's unfortunate. I do want to go back to Dan Campbell real quick. There is talk amongst people, and specifically Graham, saying that the last couple of interviews from Dan Campbell, 100% right. Like, I love the kind of patience and confidence that Dan Campbell has in these interviews. And I saw that Bills fans, which was weird, but Bills fans were flaming Graham on Twitter this morning at like 4 a.m. I don't know why, but they were flaming Graham about, you got to stop being so positive. Ownership sucks, and you're never going to, have success until ownership changes. Now, Graham, to keep you optimistic as you are, I thought the same about my Bengals because I hated the Mike Brown ownership. It's actually going okay. He got us a practice facility, and it's all because of Joe Burrow. You just need that guy. But
facts.
What I'm getting to is from an outside standpoint, from an outside viewpoint, seeing these Dan Campbell interviews, they're actually kind of rubbing me the wrong way or annoying me because he's said this for, a year and a half now, a season and a half, and I get it. What else do you say? But at the same time, it just feels like it's words and somehow the team is getting worse. It's like saying, I'll go take the trash out, and then the trash doesn't get taken out. You got to put those words into action, and I don't know. Right now, it just seems like all words to me, and it's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. I can't lie.
Here's where my problem lies with it all is every game. It's always, that was on me. That was on our coaching staff. Great. Do something about it then. Like, you can't just keep saying that. If it keeps being on you, then you're the problem. It can be on you for a little bit. That's fine. You can learn the job a little bit. You can get better at it. And we've seen guys do that before. I mean, Bill Belichick got fired from his first job. Like, he's gone on to have a lot of success. It can be done. But after a while, even if it is your fault, you got to stop saying it's your fault because it just makes it so easy to point the blame towards you, and it's just going to lead to you getting fired faster. Eventually, you got to start firing coaches, which we have done so far. Aubrey Pleasant got the can. You got to make some adjustments. You have to take that initiative. And keep saying it's on you because it's getting very tiring.
Aaron Glenn, where do you think he's at right now? Would that be a coach you're looking at to can? I know it was great to watch Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley go at it in Hard Knocks, but I mean, this defense is horrible. It is like record-breakingly bad.
I don't know how you kind of don't just clean house after this year. There's some guys I'd like to keep around. I think Antoine Randall is a guy that keep around, maybe promote him a little bit, maybe give Ben Johnson a second year too because this is kind of his first year in the gig. I'd be fine with that, but for the most part, a lot of the bigger guys, as much as I like them, maybe you move on. Maybe you put guys in different roles. I don't know. If you really think that those are the human beings to have around, that's fine. You just got to try them in different roles. At that point, if they don't work in those roles, then it kind of doesn't matter whether it's humans anymore. You got to win football games, not go out and get scum of the earth people by any means, but you got to just bring in different culture, bring in different football minds, and see what you can do.
All right, I now want to talk about two coaches that I don't think many people assumed these were, the saviors of franchises or assumed that these coaches were going to be top 10 coaches or anything, but they were kind of guys that just fit the role in which they were needed, that being Todd Bowles and Lovie Smith. The Bucs look bad, and, a big part of that is Tom Brady. He has not looked great, and it sucks to see, and I feel really bad because he's got so many, exterior factors affecting his game, but at this point, you got to dial in or you got to hang it up. And yeah. I think that Todd Bowles needs to have, a chat with him, tell him that, and also the defense. I feel like the defense has heavily regressed with the Bucs as well. So I don't know. Todd Bowles didn't really succeed before. I don't think he's really succeeding right now either.
I agree. And I think it could just be unlucky coincidence with everything that's going on in Tom Brady's life and then some injuries, blah, blah, blah. Like it's very possible. So I'm trying to give him benefit of the doubt, but you can't ignore the pretty much 180-degree turn that it's been since last year.
And then Lovie Smith, I mean, the team's not got a lot of talent, but at the same time, we saw what happened to David Culley. And at this point, I would rather David Culley than Lovie Smith, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't think David Culley deserved to get fired. Like, he had such a horrible roster and did everything he could. He kept them competitive. Like, I don't know why he got the can.
Yeah, and Lovie Smith has lost Brandon Cooks. Now, I don't think Brandon Cooks was ecstatic to be a Texan last year, but
No.
he has been very vocal about not wanting to be a Texan, how the team is just playing with his career at this point. He has been healthy, yet out of practice for the past 2 days. Brandon Cooks not loving the situation, and it might not have anything to deal with Lovie Smith, but it happened under Lovie Smith's watch, not David Culley's, and that's all I can compare.
That's fair.
All right, Chase, now let's see. How many other coaches do we have to talk about? We talked about Arthur Smith a little bit. We talked about DC. We talked about McDaniels. Talked about okay, only 2 more coaches that we really need to talk about, unless you want to go over not Logan Stanley, but Brandon Staley again.
No, I mean, we've talked about him multiple times on the show, and I don't think much has changed. I think it's kind of similar thoughts to what you had, and I'm backing you up a little bit more. So that's really all there is to say at this point.
All right, we've got 2 young head coaches that have had some tenure on their teams. These are guys who have had questions over the last couple of years. Are these really the guy? I know, Chase, you were calling for, not calling for one of their heads, but you did say in our hot takes last year that you think one of these guys would be fired by midseason, that being Cliff Kingsbury, very young coach who hasn't really succeeded all that much. Where I just can't stand Zach Taylor being the Bengals head coach. This is a guy who made it to the Super Bowl last year, yet this team is sitting at 4-4, and I mean, they can't beat Jacoby Brissett and the Browns.
Yeah, and it's very fair. Both these guys benefit from showing some real signs of life, but at the same time, they've almost always flopped. Yeah, the Bengals went on some great run. They ended up going to the Super Bowl. They lost, but it wasn't because...
Excuse you. Did you need to do that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It wasn't because of Zach Taylor that they lost. It was that they got there, I'm trying to say. That's the words I'm looking for. It was Zach Taylor's reason or fault. I can't talk right now. This is game over. Okay. But it was Zach Taylor's fault they lost because he let Samaje Perine go on the field instead of Joe Mixon at all in that game. It just makes no sense. But he's terrible. I've said he's terrible. I've hated him. I did not think he was a good coach. Joe Burrow just kind of put the team on his back. He did what Peyton Manning did in Indy, where he was just like, what's his face?
Tony Dungy.
What's that?
Tony Dungy?
No, not the offensive coordinator who ended up being the Dolphins coach, went to the Jets.
Yes.
Adam Gase?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was like Adam Gase would call the offense, and Peyton Manning would say, "No, I'm running this," and then he'd go run and do it. I think Burrow did that to the extent last year, and every big play, it seemed like he was making some sort of call before it ended up happening. And I think Zach Taylor is just his guidance is hindering this team very strongly. And Cliff Kingsbury, like, I really don't have anything else I can say about Cliff Kingsbury at this point. It's a great start to the year usually, and then always flops so hard and just comes up so short of expectations. It's going to happen again. I'm telling you. Call of Duty's out. Kyler Murray's not focused. It's a fun game. He's probably enjoying it. He doesn't care about football anymore. You guys are going to lose out. It's time to move on from Cliff.
Honestly, at this point, like, you just paid Kyler, and you can't move on from him. He's still playing well, but I don't know. I mean, bring in a new coach, see what he can do with Kyler, but at this point, I don't know if the Cardinals can get to that next level. Like, it feels like they are at the Ravens point where everyone was, oh, can Lamar even win a playoff game? I feel like that's kind of the point we're at with the Cardinals is, you know, they could be a playoff team, but are they going to do anything with it? Probably not.
Right.
All right, is it my time to get into the Cincinnati Bengals?
It is. It is your time.
All right. Well, while I was hoping to hand out candy in my first ever home-owned Halloween, I had to watch this horror show of a game as I wrote down a couple notes. Now, they're very brief. They don't go into depth, but I just wanted to read them out because this is how I was feeling as the game ended. 1, Zach Taylor still sucks. 2,
Yep.
Joe Mixon is no longer a top 20 running back. 3,
Yeah.
Jonah Williams is the worst player on that offensive line, and that offensive line includes a 4th-round rookie, Cordell Volson, out of North Dakota State.
Yeah.
And 4, no Chidobe Awuzie means the secondary is screwed. We got the announcement that Chidobe Awuzie has an ACL tear, and he is out. I don't have a lot of confidence in this Bengals team going forward. I think they can sneak into the playoffs, but I do not think that they are at the level or can even be at the level that we saw them at the end of last year. Jamar Chase still going to be out for probably another 3-4 weeks. We'll have to see. But I'm really regretting my take tracker take where I said the Bengals will be back in the AFC Championship. Joe Burrow's an absolute stud, but Zach Taylor can't figure out a freaking zone defense. Dude, it's a zone defense. You can figure it out in Madden. Like, I don't get it. And Joe Mixon's been terrible. He can't find a hole. He misses blocks. And I've been a huge Joe Mixon fan and still am. But I think at this point, it's hard to argue for him being, a top 20 running back.
I don't really disagree. It's time for them to say, screw it, we're drafting Bijan, and to go out and just have some fun.
I'd be cool with Bijan.
Yeah, that'd be all right. That'd be all right.
Yeah, I mean, right now, as a Bengal fan, I feel as low as I've been in the last couple of seasons just because I know at this point Zach Taylor is not the guy when it comes to play calling. If he hands off the play calling, then maybe I'll be a little bit more positive because I still think he is a great leader of men. He put together a great group in the locker room. All these guys love playing for him. But when it comes to play calling, it is so bad. It is on the level of Josh McDaniels and Nathaniel Hackett level of play calling. And at this point, the Bengals had Marvin Lewis for 16 years, and he didn't win a playoff game. Zach Taylor just took him to the Super Bowl. He's going to be there until he retires.
Probably, yeah. You just accept that fate.
Yeah, it hurts.
It's tough.
Well, from negative to more positive, we're going to now go over our top 3 games this week. We didn't want to go through every single game, give you the predictions, because that just adds so much time to the episode. So we're just going to look at 3 games that we're really interested in. Chase, you can do 2 of them. I'll take 1. I think it'd be easier to do, 3 worst games, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do 3 games we're looking forward to.
Yeah, you're really going to make me pick from this list.
Yep.
You could start. You go ahead and start.
But I'm only doing 1.
No, but go ahead and start. It's okay. Go ahead and start. Because you go ahead and start. You're the host. Go ahead and start.
Okay. I am going to go with Ravens Saints.
Oh, that's who I was gonna pick. No, they're all terrible games.
I think that could be a decent little game. It's a Monday Night Football game, and those haven't had great track records. But the Ravens, they're a competitive team, yet feel or lack the muster when they need it in the fourth quarter. The Saints, they surprisingly rocked the Raiders last week and played a competitive game with the Bengals up until the second half. So I'll go with that matchup. That one could be close. Could be.
Yeah, it could be. My next one, I'm going to go Lions-Packers because there's always one game a year where the Lions find a way to either compete really good with the Packers or just flat out beat them. And I don't think it's going to happen late in the year. I really don't. I think the team's going to be so checked out at that point, and maybe they are right now, or maybe they say, Hawk's gone, a fire's lit under our ass, we got to prove that we shouldn't be gone for this year, and then Amon-Ra just goes for 400 yards. I think that's realistic. But in all actuality, I think this game actually has a chance to be one of the better ones just because of some of the matchups. They're kind of stinky. And division matchups, they're always a good time. The Packers have struggled a bit this year. The Lions obviously been horrible. but maybe this is a way to right the ship for one of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. And I was looking up and down the board. I'm not going to take a pick here. I just wanted to say something real quick before you take your final pick. I was looking up and down the board and seeing close matchups, and I'm like, gosh, I'm just really not excited about that. The Colts Patriots, that's a 5-point spread. Who wants to watch that? No one. So I was like, all right, let's look at some of the bigger matchups. Maybe we see an upset coming. Maybe Derek Stingley and the Texans can shock the Eagles. But the Eagles feel so well suited up. They feel so well coached that there's just not a possibility of that happening. Like, I don't know. They feel way too organized. Like, they feel more organized to me than the Bills and the Chiefs do.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do. I mean, I said that they were going to win their division and be the top seed in the NFC this year. I don't know if you remember that from our predictions episode that we did start the year, but I had them as the number one team in the NFC because I just thought their path was relatively easy. And right now they've looked good on top of it kind of being in their favor. And I think they're just going to keep it rolling at this point. So I can't imagine that game being very close. The game that I do think has a chance of being closer than the spread is the Bills-Jets. The Jets are 12.5-point underdogs. It's a big spread. I know the Bills have looked fantastic, but the Jets, they don't look terrible. They've got some good moments. They've got some very bad moments. Zach Wilson's got some depressing moments, but he's also shown some flares. I think this game could end up being a kind of sneaky, competitive, close game. I think the Bills are still going to win, but I don't think the Jets are going to lose by 13 points by any means. I think they're going to be able to keep it close.
Yeah, I was really excited for the Jets for a while there, but then Breece Hall went down. Elijah Moore hasn't been getting any work at all. Denzel Mims, he, actually got some playing time because Elijah Moore was healthy scratched, and he got the Elijah Moore treatment, so there's not much there either. So I don't know. I'm just not excited about the Jets as I was, 2-3 weeks ago. But I did see a tweet saying that Zach Wilson is just Patrick Mahomes if he came into the game absolutely toasted, just drunk as frick. So, yeah. He's got really flashy plays similar to Patrick Mahomes, but he's also terrible at protecting the ball.
Yeah, he's horrendous with it.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I feel like we ended on quite the negative note.
Yes, we did. It was, other than the friggin' trade deadline stuff, it was all just kind of negative. So we talked a bunch of crap about coaches.
Yep.
We talked about our 3 best games this week actually all just being terrible.
Yep.
So, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what the media does, right? I feel like the media is always just super negative. So we're just sliding into that role just briefly. Maybe next episode will be a little bit more upbeat and positive. We'll see. But that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's, again, on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. All of our socials will also be in the links in the description if you're interested in checking those out. If you're listening on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think is going to be the best matchup in this week, or let us know what coach you would fire immediately if you were the owner of a team. Also, hit the bell to turn on notifications. We would really appreciate that. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could please give us a follow and a 5-star rating, we would absolutely love you for it. Thanks so much for stopping by. Nope. As always, we're not professionals.